Welcome this evening to the January 18th Policy Committee meeting for the School District of Waukesha. I call the meeting to order. First, verification that the meeting has been properly posted. Julie?
It has.
Thank you. And we have everybody here. Okay, at this point we'll move to the opportunity for citizens to address us. We have, did you say 5, Julie? Okay. With that, we will have 5 speakers or less, or 5 speakers. The speakers will be notified at 3 minutes, but will allowed to go to 5 minutes to complete their comments. We expect all speakers to honor our time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language in any manner, and be respectful of their comments. Speakers are here to address the board and not the audience. Speakers who do not meet the expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future board and committee meetings. We also expect that the audience will be respectful of the speaker and of the board and refrain from responding with verbal comments, cheering, applause, or other behavior that will detract from the meeting. Please note that no obstructions can be created between the board and the audience, and that the area behind the speaker and podium will be clear during public comment. Also, in order to respect speakers and meeting participants, if you have cell phone, silence it. Our first speaker will be Paul Reese. Paul?
Good evening. Number of students failing at least one class or more in 2019 at Waukesha North was 54. In 2020, that number rose to 292, an increase of 440.7%. In 2019, Waukesha South had a total of 135 students failing at least one class or more. In 2020, that number rose to 387, for an increase of 186.7%. In 2019, Waukesha West had a total of 74 students failing one class or more, and in 2020 that number rose to 268 for an increase of 262.2%. Also, I took them all, I added them up because I missed some of the academies, and so to get all together in 2019 there was a total of 269 students failing in high school, one class or more, and in 2020 that number rose to 982 students. That's an increase. The increase over the original number is 713 students. Now I had to talk with someone. First, this is due to the judgment of Bill Baumgart and Greg Dietz and Amanda Rowdy that are left on this board. This was their better judgment on how we treat education in this district. That we put education last. We taught kids that education is not essential. That other people go to work and other people stay home. And education is the stay home part of life. I had a talk with someone about the priorities of this, why this happened, and they said, well, it's parents. These are bad parents. So another 713 students were because of parents, and not because of teachers. And every time I have a conversation with some elitist liberal, they immediately tell me how well their students are. But that they'll turn around and pound the table and tell that education is about all students. We need all students. Really? We need all students. But as soon as we bring up the lack of education going on in this district, they'll turn around and tell me, well, my student's doing good. You know, which is it? Also, I wanted to address Mr. Siebert. I have known you for a very short period of time. You've been nothing more than polite, kind to us. You have acted, you're almost kind to a fault. You're one of those people. And I've enjoyed knowing you. I'm kind of prickly and standoffish. I don't come here to be friends with people. I just come here because I come here. But anyways, I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Next will be Ray Runke. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Thank you. And followed by Samuel DeMigo.
Hi, I'm a senior at Waukesha South and am among many of LGBTQ+ youth in our district. and I'm honestly very disappointed in our district. We've been telling you time and time again to just listen to us, and all you do is ignore us. As a transgender student in this district, I have felt unsafe because of the decisions that you all made. Allowing us our signs to show where we're safe does not hurt anybody, but having them removed absolutely does. You hear these very few adults saying they're glad the signs are removed, but refuse to listen to the actual people this situation really affects. It doesn't affect them, it affects us, the students. And the students, and even many parents every night that come up to this podium to speak, have told you the same thing over and over and over, to bring our signs back. Everyone on this panel that isn't queer, please be thankful that you don't need a sign telling you where it's safe for you to be straight. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among youth, and LGBTQ+ youth are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than their cis and straight peers. The Trevor Project reported that 19% of LGBTQ+ youth attempted suicide in 2021. That is 503,073 children that attempted to take their lives because they felt they were not accepted in this world due to their sexuality or gender identity. Things like accepting signs that tell our youth they are not alone and they are loved and accepted for who they are might just be enough to save at least some of them from that kind of fate. And I really hope you all consider that. Our children are dying and you have the power to change it, so do it. I also would like to talk about the recent change in phone policy. I honestly think it's a little bit excessive. I don't trust the student body enough for my phone to not be on my person at all times, as I know multiple people who've had their phone stolen at school. The students that use their phone as a distraction aren't going to suddenly pay attention in class because you took their phone away from them. They're just going to find a different distraction. Instead of punishing all of the students, I think we should make sure teachers are actually enforcing the original phone policy, because I don't think I've ever actually seen a teacher take a phone away when someone was using it incorrectly in class. Thank you.
Thank you. Samuel, followed by Dave Richmond.
Good evening. Tonight I'd like to start off with 2 topics I have today. Tonight I'd like to start with, I'd like to thank publicly my principal for returning the pride banner that I had over the GSA doors, and he gave me permission today to return it back to the GSA doors. So just publicly thanking Mr. Kitzlar today. On January 11th, 2022, Rebecca Clayfish held a campaign fundraiser in Waukesha for her gubernatorial campaign, where our very own Kelly Piasek was not only in attendance, but also led the event with former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Clayfish, among others. My grievance isn't with her attendance of the event. My grievance is with the use of her school board member title to use her expertise in education. Using her office for the political gain of herself and others in a public display of partisanship to anything but officially endorsing Rebecca Clayfish for governor. Dr. Piasek stated at the August 2021 Special Board of Education meeting, "The people elected me to be fair." Yes, Dr. Piasek, they did. December 15th, 2021, Kelly Piasek appeared in a video by the 1848 Project, an organization led by and founded by Rebecca Clayfish to lead forward the state of Wisconsin with a conservative agenda, per their website. On May 12th, 2021, just hours before the school board decided in a 5-4 vote to make face masks optional, Kelly Piasek, along with Anthony Zenobia, held a political rally outside this very building to encourage and energize a crowd, many from outside of our district, to take back our freedoms. Kelly Piasek and Anthony Zenobia were endorsed by the Republican Party of Waukesha County, Wisconsin Red, and publicly by other organizations, special interests, and Republican candidates and incumbent office holders. Kelly Piasek stated at the August 2021 Special Board of Education meeting that the Waukesha County Democratic Party was fundraising off of the board's unanimous vote in June of 2021 to go back to the free and reduced lunch program and the outrage that ensued. Well, that is true, and I disagree strongly with the Democratic Party doing so. Subsequently, the Republican Party of Waukesha County began fundraising off of their website on that speech given by Kelly Piasek. How ironic. There's a reason I'm bringing this all up. There's a serious problem in our district right now. The superintendent's signage ban, argued to have created a more neutral environment for schools, is being supported by 2 board members who are anything but neutral. Tell me you don't see anything questionable with that. The school board is a nonpartisan office, and education should not be politicized by school board candidates or incumbent school board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Excuse me. David Richmond, followed by Sarah.
First of all, as I put in my email to Dr. Siebert, I said I would publicly apologize. I overstepped my own bounds, and I appreciate you taking my email and accepting, whether you're not, you accepted it, you did accept my email, and I did want to publicly apologize. It is unfair of me to publicly attack you. I broke my own rule, and so I wanted to do that publicly as well, that I broke my own rule, and I publicly apologize for calling you out for action. So, thank you, Dr. Siebert. After I spoke last week, by the way, there's no one in the room across the hall, just in case you're thinking that there's this big mob over there. It was discussed at Wednesday's meeting and a previous committee meeting about the need for expansion, because we need to bring the rooms together because it's noisy and people are self-selecting to be over there. Those are some of the quotes used. Public information, so I'm not misquoting. You know what it's been the last couple of times? It's been 3 to 7 students, 3 to 5 adults from both sides, one retired teacher, actually another time there were a couple of retired teachers, and myself sitting over there. The big noise that you hear, it's something I wish I had on video. It's teachers coming out of this meeting expressing joy about and sharing their excitement about what they just presented. That's done right outside this door. The other one was when Horning presented here in a great meeting. Kids and their leaders were out there. I wish I had this on camera, because that was the big liberal mob that the two people on this board are considering, saying we need bigger spaces to bring people together because of division. Division is what it is. To spend any time from an administration standpoint on space during this time is ridiculous. I wish I had that on tape. This big noise, big conspiracy, it was teachers and students enjoying their experience and knowing what they had just been able to do. That's been the big hubbub. 5 of 7 of the 9 members were not in attendance. Now, COVID does have an effect on this, but that should open up some room. There have been over 100 and, what did I count over the weekend? 143 3 to 5 minute speeches touching on a lot of very controversial, non-controversial topics. I don't recall, and I couldn't find one person, not one, of those 143 that talked about the need for a room. The administration, Mr. Clark, said he was going to follow up on that based on the board's recommendations.
3 minutes. Just 3 minutes. You're still...
Like deep voice. Thank you. Threw me off.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. There's not a need for that. There's not a need for administration to spend any time on rooms and that sort of thing. Yes, long-term planning. There is not an immediate need. We don't have any immediate needs if the school board would focus on education. Look at the agenda from last Wednesday's meeting. You know how many topics have the word education in it? Go ahead, take a look at it. It's the Board of Education. And that's part of the problem. Actually, it's most of the problem. Because most of the problems have developed due to COVID and then other events. Then there's no lack of follow-up. Sam just mentioned a few instances. There's a long laundry list of items that the school board president has decided if he doesn't address, they don't exist. Unfortunately, there have been numerous violations and nothing to be discussed because, again, there is nothing for the school board because it's built in. The administration can't say anything back to the board because the board is the administration's boss. Which also, I believe, leads to some of the problems with diversity. Because I think their hands are tied. What they're doing, we don't know because they haven't been allowed to be transparent.
30 seconds.
Because the right individuals on a certain side have decided that we are going to go back to the old ways. You know what the old ways consisted of? There were smoking areas at the high school, for those of you who are old enough to remember. There were belt checks, there were hair checks. I don't want to go back to those golden days. There was outright racism here in Waukesha School District 30 and 35 years ago. I don't want to go back to that. I'm demanding a public review of the school board president.
Time.
Your time is up.
To review the notes and have a public hearing in regards to violations of school board policy by numerous members of the school board.
Sarah Harrison.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to try not to touch the podium because we've got a little percussion action going on there. I come before you tonight to speak about some of the great accomplishments and some of the areas where we have some opportunity within the school district of Waukesha. So when we talked about the 2020 to 2021 school year, the Department of Public Instruction, or the DPI, gave our district an exceeding expectations rating, which is fantastic. We rated at number 2 out of the 10 largest school districts in the state, So as a whole, we're looking really good. That's a good thing. Love to see it. When you start looking at some of the components that feed into that whole picture, that's where we start to see where we should put some of our focus. We continue to have an achievement gap where our students who are in certain schools and fall into certain socioeconomic, racial, and and ethnic groups don't perform at the same level as some of our other groups. So in order to address this ongoing achievement gap, we need to continue to provide ongoing education and resources to teachers, families, and communities members, and promptly address any systemic inequities that are discovered. So some of those resources that we can provide to these at-risk students include one-on-one time with educators, which we can give more of when we have smaller class sizes, setting clear benchmarks and tracking progress toward their goals, and training our students in key learning techniques such as note-taking and self-assessment. Now, all kids are going to learn in different ways. Some students need to hear information before they can process it. Others might benefit from reading something out loud. Kids are individuals just like adults, and they all benefit from different things. Some kids may need a quiet space, and others may really thrive in a dynamic and interactive environment. So we, as the leaders within this community, need to come together and ensure that access to these learning tools are available to our kids, especially our more at-risk populations. In order to help our kids continue to succeed after they leave our district and graduate and move along, I think we need to evaluate the benefits and the downfalls of some of our current programs, including early childhood intervention programs and our college readiness program, in advancement via individual determination, or as you probably hear it more often,
2 minutes.
AVID. We have some great things going. We have some good momentum, and I want to see us bring all of our students along to success. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. With that, we will move into the next section. First, we need to approve the minutes from the December Policy Committee meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Patrick.
Second.
Seconded by Greg. Okay. Questions, discussion? None? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Julie? Okay, this evening we have actually 7 action items. And for board members, you will notice that there's a revised copy on your desk for one of those. When we get to a little further down the line, but it is there. It's 2431. There was a little bit of a slip up, and we've got it cleaned up. So, the first policy is 5112. I gotta get my papers out here. Entrance age for students. Joe, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so this policy was just updated to take out anything that wasn't statutorily required. If you look on page 2 of 3 under initial entry, all we're asking for is the required documentation of a family. So you will see in there that, the immunization record is not required as part of this entrance age piece. We do have a separate policy on immunizations, 5320. It was included in the electronic thing for your review. So the policy on 5320 references, having updated immunization records in the system. And it also talks about the waivers, should families not want to have the immunization, just what they need to do, personal conviction, religious conviction, or medical reason. So that information is under policy elsewhere, but under the initial entry, it's not required that this be provided.
Okay, thank you. You've all had a chance to look at that. Is there any discussion, questions you have on 5112 at this point? Kelly?
I don't have any issues with the modifications that were proposed. I just have a question of clarification, as long as we have this open for discussion. They're under the early admission allowances under item F. It does kind of explain what's required to be eligible for early admission, and then a couple sections later, it describes a child whose 5th birthday falls between September 2nd and September 30th may be considered for early admission. Are those mutually exclusive? Are they pertaining to different things, or does it only mean that up to September 30th, the child may be evaluated for early admission?
That's the window that we use. There's some recommendations in the DPI's early learning program as to admission into school. So we followed that. There's certainly opportunities for us to make exception with families if it's necessary. But we do have this as just a general guide for us to, help with the day-to-day conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any further questions? Then I would be seeking a motion for approval of policy 5112 as modified.
So moved.
Kelly, thank you. Moved by Kelly, seconded by Anthony. Sorry, I was to say Andy. Got to fix that. Further discussion, questions on that one? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's a 5-0, Julie. Policy 5520, disorderly conduct for students. Looks like they added in a section here.
Yep, just to provide clarification around what the disciplinary consequences could be for disorderly conduct, which could include suspension or expulsion from school.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion on policy 5520 for disorderly conduct? This is a student version, at the student level.
Correct, the 5,000.
You have to always remember, we have administration, staff, and students, and probably one or two more, so this one is focused on students. I will be seeking a motion for approval of 5520.
So moved.
Moved by Patrick, seconded by Greg. Any additional questions? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting policy 5520 as modified, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, Julie. Brings us to policy 5720, student activism and expression.
Yeah, the update to this policy just connects it to board policy that any expression or activism in the school must adhere to board policy and also follow lawful means. And then it does cross-reference the policy for disorderly conduct should the behavior should the activism involve obscenity, slanderous or libelous statements, disruptive tactics, or advocate violation of school law or the law in general.
Okay. Questions on this one? You'll notice that these are all relatively brief in like one paragraph type thing, so we're going to take care of that a little later. There's a much bigger one. With that, I will seek a motion for approval of policy 5720, student activism. Anthony moved, seconded by
Second.
Patrick. Questions, discussion? Seeing none, then, Julie, I will ask for those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0, Julie. 5880, public performance by students.
This policy has been updated to include the statement students who participate in public events and performances as part of the district-sponsored groups are subject to district policies and regulations for student dress and conduct. These events are an extension of what we do at school, so we want to make sure that those rules are adhered to. The word endorses was changed to approves because ultimately the board does provide an approval process for these things to the principal. If you go down to C and D was added, making sure that we have parental permission for each minor student, that it is received prior to the performances, and that the student and student groups are protected from exploitation. So that we want to make sure that anything that our kids participate in are, that the kids, one, we have permission from families in order to do so, and two, that they're not being used to, for instance, raise money for an outside organization.
Joe, you and I had this discussion earlier, but would you just make a little description of a public-sponsored event versus?
Sure. So if, for instance, if the city were to reach out for the 4th of July parade, whoever is orchestrating the 4th of July parade, for instance, and they want our bands to participate in the 4th of July parade, this would be a situation that applied to that. If we had a situation where there was a civic performance where a choir would go and, for instance, sing the national anthem, this would apply to that scenario. This isn't for general things that are connected to the school already, such as the band performance at the high school or the football game that will occur in the fall of the year. This talks about when somebody reaches out to us and says, would your students be willing to perform in, we want to make sure that that activity is protected.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I was a little bit confused on that, so. Further discussions on this one? Kelly?
Thank you. I just have one item, and that is the use of the word regulations. When we say subject to district policies and regulations, the district itself doesn't have regulations. Are there other regulations that you think would apply here, or could we potentially strike that just for accuracy?
Policies and I would say procedures, that would be the word that would fit there. So procedures for student conduct instead of regulations.
I'd just put it out for discussion, just because regulations would imply that there's some sort of law that we're
that's good.
holding them to.
Would you like, that would be an adjustment to this if you want to make an adjustment. Or do you want to make?
Any comments from other members?
It is more clarifying, I agree. We just all agree? We're going to change that word? No? Okay.
So I could make a motion.
I don't think it's necessary if we say the word.
Just make a motion to approve it with a modification.
Why don't you do it
From
that?
regulations to policies. To procedures.
Move the policy with that amendment to it. Okay.
Correct.
Procedures. Julie, have you got that one? I do. Thank you. Any further discussion on 5880? With that, I will seek for, we have the motion, excuse me. All in favor of accepting 5880 with the modification as given? Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's the second, Bill?
Huh?
Did we second?
We didn't second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, all in favor of accepting this as modified with the change of word procedures, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Julie, thank you. Good change. $9,500, relations with educational institutions and organizations.
Yeah, so this language was updated to talk about it's educational research that may go on in our school district. It also addresses what the superintendent must do if it involves, if this relationship involves the use of district resources or require resources from the school district, and that the designation of a staff member to serve as a liaison with our private and local private and parochial schools. So.
We made a technical correction on this afternoon. Is that in here now, Julie, or not?
It's in board docs.
Okay.
In the last paragraph, and by this word, students, resident students, so the third line of the last paragraph, the green student should be students.
Yes. Questions on 9,500? Seeing no questions, I will ask for a motion for approval of relations with educational institutions and organizations, policy 9500.
So moved.
Moved by Patrick,
Second.
seconded by Greg. Further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Julie? Okay, now we have policy 2431, interscholastic athletics and district activities. This is a bit longer, but
Yeah.
most of the activity is on one page, so.
Correct. The policy's been updated. The recommendation that came to us from Neola is on the first page of 7. That it talks about just general, it gives us a little bit of flexibility. So if the WIAA changes their constitution, then our policy is in line with it because we simply state that we'll follow the WIAA constitution. It also gives the superintendent or designee the authorization to set behavior expectations for participants in athletics. So that summarizes the changes on the first page. If you go to the page 6 of the policy, you'll begin to see language around Appendix B. And this was language that has sat in an administrative guideline around this policy for a while. The athletic directors, just based off of how the policy read, and this is a policy that was updated and is in the in your white packet, white paper on your desk here. It was updated to reflect the policies that the administration, the athletic directors have to deal with. So Appendix A lists the sports. My apologies here. Appendix A lists the sports and what the penalty would be for a 20% violation or a 50% violation. So we want to be very clear with our students and our families as to if you are in violation of the athletic code, this is what could happen. But under Appendix B, we do talk about the areas of unacceptable conduct. It's not a fully extensive list, but these are all areas of conduct that our athletic directors have to deal with on a regular basis. They felt that it would be appropriate to recommend to the committee to add it to policy. And so if you look at page 6, the first point on the golden sheets that we had was just a little clunky, but it is summarized as the technology violations as listed in policy 7540.03, student technology and acceptable use and safety.
Questions?
Just a comment, seems to me that everything on here is already based in policy that we already have in place. It's really just bringing to the surface all those that would apply and our athletic directors or coaches would have the authority to
reference this and implement it. What we do run into sometimes is athletic code violation happens. We will get an appeal of the suspension, and then people will come to us and say, you didn't have traffic violations adjacent to school property listed and specifically. So we wanted to make sure that we were very clear with people that, athletics is a privilege in the district, that we hold our athletes to a high expectation, and that we want to be very clear with people as to what those expectations are from a behavior standpoint.
Okay. All right, Joe, I got another question. We should have thought of this earlier this afternoon, too. Our next policy discussion is going to involve potential change in the number of sports we include.
Correct.
That would mean we'd have a change in this policy. So could we just set this policy aside and come back and add that in to see if the other one passes?
It's not a change in this policy. That change in the other policy is for the physical education waiver. This policy talks about what are the WIAA sports. The other policy is a little bit broader to say activities that meet the physical requirements, I guess, of a sport. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
In the next
What's
one.
being proposed in the next policy,
Okay.
but they don't link.
Say don't link.
They do not
Thank you,
link.
because I saw the same list coming up. Okay, with that, any further discussions on policy that we're talking about? $24.31? No?
Mr. Cook, have students and parents been notified of these changes as well, or will they be in the future?
They will be if the committee and the board approves it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion for approval of policy 2431 as adjusted?
So moved.
So moved by Greg? Second by Anthony. Further questions or discussions on this one? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting this, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, Julie. Okay. Then policy 5460, graduation requirements is the next one. This is the addition that you found on your desk.
Yep. So if
Yeah,
you-
another addition. No, you got, was this
This was
sent
on
out?
this is right behind the athletic policy.
It was
that we just
amended,
looked
yeah.
at. A few years back, the board approved the use of athletics to replace the 11th and 12th grade PE requirement if the students participated and then successfully completed the season. So just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective on this, if you look under item E on page 2, it talks about the PE requirement in 9th and 10th grade, so one semester of PE in grade 9, one in grade 10. Students in grades 11 and 12 participating in and completing the full season of a district-sponsored WIAA recognized sport or other school-sponsored activity that meets specific physical activity and participation requirements as established by the superintendent or designee can have 1/2 of the credit for physical education waived, but must complete an additional 1/2 of credit of English, social studies, mathematics, science in lieu of the 1/2 of PE. Just for some perspective, we require on the high end of the number of graduation requirements. Our students at the high school have a ample opportunity to earn enough credits to graduate. We have a 25 credit graduation requirement. I believe when all is said and done, if a kid just took a straight schedule, they could earn 32 credits with the 8 opportunities per semester or per year. So by adding this on as an additional requirement, there's ample opportunity for kids to pick up an English class, a math class, a science class, whatever it might be. So it's not like things get squeezed in there for kids. The recommended athletics and activities that are being recommended are found on the second page, page 3 of 4. Boys and girls alpine ski racing and boys and girls snowboarding. We want to give the students who participate in these activities the opportunity to earn that credit as well. We know the physical demands of these sports, the training, the duration of the season, and the commitment that they make. So the athletic directors and the high school administration feels that this would be a worthy proposal to you to approve, if possible, for the students who are participating.
Thank you for explaining that. Are there questions on this? No?
Just smiling. My version of snowboarding is a little less athletic. I've seen these kids and they're pretty good, so.
Okay, the policy in front of us is adding boys and girls alpine ski racing and boys and girls snowboarding, giving the opportunity for a student to waive the PE half credit. I believe it's a half credit, isn't it, Joe?
Yes.
Half credit,
Junior and
and
senior.
take another course in place of that. Okay, I would seek a motion for approval of 5460. No, excuse me. Yes, it is 5460.
So moved.
Moved by Patrick,
Second.
seconded by Kelly. Further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. 5-0. Julie? Thank you. That was 7 policy action items that we have covered. We do have one item for discussion, policy 5500.01, student conduct in a virtual classroom.
Yeah, this was a new policy, obviously, given the times that we've been in. We have seen behavior in the virtual environment that doesn't neatly get captured under 5600.01, our consequences for student misconduct. In talking with Jason Smith, the principal of eAchieve, however we go about teasing out like the need for transitioning kids virtual or face-to-face, whatever it might be due to COVID or whatever other sickness that come through, we still have the eAchieve environment for our students. So we wanted to make sure we had a policy that captured the behavior. The policy is new. It's being proposed to the committee for approval. Items A through J are the items that are a little bit more specific to the virtual classroom. So any conduct that a student would participate in that would be in violation of 5600.01 would still be something that we would discipline for. But in this environment, the use or display of a weapon, the use or display of tobacco or related products such as an electronic or vaping instrument, the use or display of alcohol or illegal drugs, dress or attire in violation of the student dress code, language or gestures in violation of the student code of conduct, display including as a background, an image, or artifact in violation of non-discrimination policies or otherwise inappropriate, the use of cell phones unless authorized by the teacher as part of the classroom activities, leaving the virtual classroom during the class without the teacher's permission, the use of computing device to screenshot images of the virtual class and classmates. So if you kind of imagine that Brady Bunch image that you'd get in Zoom, we want to make sure that to the degree we can that the privacy is protected for the students at eAchieve. And then the use of chat feature to disrupt instruction and prevent class discourse. Jason Smith shared with me that kids will, I forget what the term is, but they will flood the chat with so much text or symbols or whatever it is that kids can't type questions into the teachers. And so, again, it's unique. It's a disruption of the class. But these are areas that were, really things that eAchieve teachers and I'd venture to guess some of our teachers who were teaching virtual last year faced.
So you've actually been through this with talking to some of the teachers, this paper, not other ones?
Jason Smith,
Jason-
principal of eAchieve,
Yeah,
who ultimately deals with the behavior
okay,
of students at eAchieve. Yes.
good, thank you. This is a new, a new policy. New policies, we don't approve the first night. We'll be bringing it back, but if there are any questions or concerns, this is a good time to ask them or study them or.
I have one, and it's just a simple suggestion related to item I. Just thinking about some of the group work that might happen in these virtual classes that may be appropriate, or could we consider adding to the end of that without the teacher's permission in addition? So if, for example, you're working on something as a team, you want to screenshot it as part of a report, I would just want to maybe allow some flexibility on that one.
I think that makes sense, because this would seem to exclude doing it at all.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken note of it.
Thank you.
You'll take it?
Back next
Okay.
month.
Good. Greg?
The information in front of us talks about prohibitive behaviors, but it doesn't really talk about consequence or enforcement of that, or like any consequences. per violation of that, and I wonder if that was something that was being considered to be added.
Yes, so policy 5600.01 is our consequences for student misconduct, and that is the policy that we refer to for any behavioral violations. So this conduct in the virtual classroom would be a behavior policy, a discipline policy that sits by itself. We have similar ones for the use of tobacco, for bullying, for harassment. Those things don't specifically spell out the behavior consequence. It all refers back to 5600.01.
I'm writing. Okay, other questions? Because this will be coming back to us next month. Okay? That's 5500.01, conduct in virtual classrooms. We do have two policies that have just technical corrections. 0122, board powers, they had to, Joe, we had to add that paragraph, not paragraph, that phrase in there, right?
Yep, so just to put it in context for those that are listening, the power of this Board of Education extends to those matters expressly or implicitly granted by Constitution, statute, local charter, or ordinance, or other law, including the power to do all things reasonable to promote the cause of education, and then they added on there, unless prohibited by federal or state law. And then they added the statutory citations below that would go with this. So, again, we bring the technical corrections forward to the committee so you know what is being updated. This isn't anything that requires action. It's just for your information.
Okay. It's there for you to know. And the other technical correction is policy 2414, human growth and development. And that has just a couple.
Yeah, there's, the language required subjects is added at the bottom of page 1, which generally outlines content of human growth and development. It adds the Wisconsin statutes to it under items E, F, E and F, and then it builds in Board Policy 9140, which we have on the books. It just puts the title of that in Citizens Advisory Committees, so it's spelled out. And it defines who should be on this committee when reviewing human growth and development. So it talks about staff, parents, healthcare professionals, members of clergy, and other residents of the district in the design and implementation of the program.
We had this in effect, we just didn't use that name, didn't we?
We just wanted to add citizens advisory committees to it. It was the insertion of the name.
Yeah. Any questions on that one?
So
Greg?
Just a question, if the committee does exist currently, are there members that are currently on the committee?
I don't believe human growth and development is up for review now.
Okay.
But in order for it to be reviewed and modified, the Citizens Advisory Committee has to be activated.
So it'd be developed at that time?
It would be developed at that time.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Well, that brings, anybody still questioning that? No? Okay. Item number 6 on us, other business, recommendations for future committee meetings, something that somebody might be wanting in a policy or discussion policy. Doesn't have to be, you can always do it, but, okay. Yes, Kelly.
I have it's probably related to maybe as much to item 2, not a specific policy to come back, but just a request maybe, I know that there is work that's done on these policies and we're anticipating bringing them to committee, but if we know the list of policies that are coming, even without the modifications, it would be helpful if we could have a little bit more time to review them. So in some cases, we get the stack of policies on Friday,
Yes.
we're reviewing them on Tuesday. If we could at least just even have a list of those policies that we would be reviewing, it might be helpful to get a head start on those.
That's a reasonable question. Julie, that wouldn't be a big problem, would it?
No, my question would be, would the committee want us to get you the packet a week and a half in advance of the meeting? So instead of last Friday, the whatever day last Friday was, the week before. Would that be helpful to you? 'Cause, I mean, for us, it's just a matter of, setting some deadlines a little bit differently on a month-by-month basis. It wouldn't be very difficult for us to give you a week and a half notice of all the policies that are coming.
Yeah, if you're always ready. I mean,
Yep.
that stuff just this week, we just had one just came in.
Sure, and that more or less just would be a function of when the meeting is happening and when we're requesting our information.
Okay.
We've tried to get those
So
packets.
what you could get out a week before would be a possibility.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that difficult. Just for some perspective for the board, there's a few business policies that'll be coming next month in February, and then I'm proud to say that we would have then entertained all of the policies that were either backlogged or from the last revision. With the next breath, I'll let you know that Neola just released another series of policies for us to review and consider. So we'll be bringing that forward to you then in the months ahead.
Okay, let's try it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not asking for necessarily to accelerate the work on the administrative side, but I think just even knowing things that come for technical corrections are not my concern, but we have had some pretty long lists lately, and I think just to do due diligence on reading all of these would be helpful to know in advance if they're coming.
This is only 25% of what we had last month.
No, that's
You're right. Good.
And Dr. Piasek, I think that would be, maybe something that would be beneficial to other board members too, that aren't on the committee, because sometimes, they read what's here, but they're not present at the meetings, and they might have some additional time to think about those as well, so
Yeah, I would agree.
good suggestion.
Okay. That concludes our agenda. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February 15th at 6 PM. Adjourned.